Welcome to Great on the Grill by Josephine County Farm Collective. I'm Jamie, and today I'm going to show you how to cut up and grill an entire chicken, as well as make some stuffed zucchini boats with fresh seasonal produce. So, we'll get this chicken out of this bag here. So once you get the chicken out of its wrapping, you're gonna kind of want to spread it out a little bit so you can see all of the limbs. So you got your little leggies, and you got your little wingies, and here's your neck. So today we're gonna learn how to cut this whole chicken up into 2, 4, 6 pieces to put on the grill. And now with the chicken is actually going to show you how to cut it. So the easiest way to start is with the legs. Now right here in between the leg and the breast, you're going to make a small incision from the underside to open this skin. So now you see the skin is the only thing holding that leg into the body of the chicken. So we'll separate the rest of this skin, and we're gonna follow the line of that skin all the way down to where that leg meets the rest of the body. We'll do the other side. So you're gonna find this big opening here where the leg meets the body. You'll put your knife in there and separate the skin. And you'll go all the way down to where the leg meets the body again down at the bottom. So now your legs are almost fully separate from the bird. So when we do that, we're going to flip this chicken over. Now we're going to go back here, spin that around for you. So between the thigh and the rest of the body of the chicken, you're going to follow this line. And now this can be done with any knife, but I prefer a blade that has just a little bit of flexibility to it. It's called a fillet knife, but you can do this with any knife. So you're gonna take your thumb to bust this leg and thigh off the chicken. You're gonna put your thumb down as far as you can into that chicken. You're gonna grab it right up here by where the socket is, where that joint goes. And you can kind of feel a little indentation there. So you're basically going to take it and you're going to dislocate that leg. And so see, it creates a natural line here. That's where your bone dislocates. And so then you're just going to follow this natural line between the thigh and the body of the chicken. So one more time on the other side. Okay, so you're going to take your thumb, put it inside the chicken, you're gonna flip it over, and you're basically gonna bend the whole thing backwards. And you'll feel that bone dislocate from the joint once again. And then you just take your knife and you'll just run it right along there. And there's a natural line to separate that. So now that your legs and thighs are off, we're gonna do the wings. The wings are a little bit harder because they're a little more delicate to break off, but you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna find the natural line where the skin is, and you're just gonna separate that skin a little bit. Just gonna separate just a little bit. And then you're gonna flip the chicken over again. I like to get a good grip with your hand on the inside of the chicken, and you just pop that leg out of its socket as well. And it's not gonna separate as nicely as the thigh does, but you'll just run your knife right around the edge of that wing there. Make a little incision, and then you twist it right off. Takes a little more muscle than the thigh does, but it's also pretty simple. Don't be afraid to hurt your chicken. It's already dead. So we'll do one more of these, one more wing. So we'll make an incision to separate the skin there. Get a good grip on your chicken and dislocate that joint. You see that bone pop right out of there. And then you'll make a circular incision all the way around. And it should tear right off there. So now you've got your wingies and you've got your thighs in here. And so now we'll do the chicken breast. The chicken breast is a little more challenging to do with the skin on. So if you lose the skin, it's not a big deal. So between where your wing is and your breast is, so that's your wing socket, and this is your chicken breast. You're gonna stick your knife in between those two, and you're just gonna make a small incision up. That's gonna show you a natural line. See, there's a natural hole in here between the joint and the breast. And that's gonna lead you to the membranes that connect the breast to the bone of the chicken. So then you'll insert your knife and you'll just make slow incisions following along that natural line of the breast. And then it'll run right along the rib cage there. And there'll be a natural line that you can almost kind of peel away at with your fingers. And this is your wishbone here that everyone usually loves to have from a bird. And now that breast just kind of naturally separates with your finger. In here, this is your chicken tender. That's what you get when you go to crispy, crackling, crunchy chicken and they sell you a chicken tender. That will cut off separately. It's a really, really, as it says, a tender piece of meat. So it tends to stay more moist and doesn't get as dry as quickly as the breast does. So to finish getting this breast off the chicken, we're gonna flip it back over and we'll just take the skin off because it's easier to demonstrate where your natural lines are without the skin on there. So if you like the skin on, that's great, go for it. But for this demonstration, we'll take it off so that you can see where we're gonna make these incisions into the chicken. So from here, the underside of your breast is already separated. And then you're gonna take your knife and you're just gonna run it along the very bottom edge of that. And it's just gonna naturally kind of separate as you run your knife along it. Boom, you got a chicken breast. So in order to get the tender out, it's a little bit trickier, but you're gonna run your knife right along that same incision line that you did before, right on the top there, and that'll also kind of naturally separate just a little bit. This is your bone again, but we'll run a knife along this side too. And that's why you want this nice flexible blade. That way you can kind of make these very delicate cuts. So you run that knife right in there along the bones. You can kind of feel where the bones are and you can feel where the tender is. And up here, this is a small tendon at the top. You're gonna wanna cut around that and then we can trim it off as well. That tender is literally just gonna pull right out of there because it is such soft, beautiful meat. So there's your chicken tender as well. So once again, we're gonna find that natural little hole between the joint and the breast. You're gonna go in and you're gonna make one small incision there. And that leads you to your little chicken cave. A little chicken cave in there. So once again, you'll just take your knife and run it naturally right along the edge of that breast, and it'll peel away almost. See how it just kind of tears nicely, and then you run your finger along it and it'll separate it almost entirely. So we'll go back up to the other side of this breast. And we'll just follow that line right along the spine as well. Just follow that natural line along the spine. Get that skin off there, and you've got yourself a chicken breast. All right, we'll do the tender one more time. So you just take your knife, run it along that natural ridge line, right on your spine there, and then that tender is almost gonna peel itself away from the inside of that bone. Then one last time, just take that knife and run it along the inside, and then you've got yourself a chicken tender. All right, so we've got 2 breasts, 2 chicken tenders, 2 legs and thighs, and 2 wings. We're gonna get those seasoned up and we're gonna put them on the grill. So generally the legs and thighs take the longest to cook on the grill. So we're gonna start with those and we'll get them going. This is Salinity Salt's Chipotle seasoning. Works great on almost everything, and today we're gonna use it for this chicken. I like to rub it on there because it sticks a little bit better. You're gonna get that skin nice and covered, so get a good seasoning coating on there. All right. And so you want your grill to be somewhere around 500 degrees. It sounds really hot, but because of the surrounding air, it's gonna be just right for this chicken. So I put bone down to start off with. And we'll get those started on the grill. We'll come back over here and we'll do our breasts. And so if this were a bigger chicken and I was in a bit of a rush and I wanted to get this done more quickly, I would do what's called a butterfly on the chicken, where I would cut this chicken breast in half like sandwich bread. And when you flip it open, it creates a nice lean piece of meat, a really thin piece that's going to cook a lot quicker on the grill. But because this is a fairly small chicken breast, they're gonna cook pretty quickly. So we'll get some seasoning on there. We'll do the tenders as well. Okay. Now the tenders, I put off to the side. I don't want them on direct heat because they're so small. They'll get overcooked and really tough quickly. The breast can go right on there. If you had skin on those breasts, leave the skin up the first time. That way it gets a little bit of a crust on it before you flip it over. That way when you flip it over, it's not gonna stick to that grate. Also put your wings off to the side because they're much smaller than the other cuts. That way they don't burn as well. So we're gonna leave those on there. We'll set a 20-minute timer and then we'll check them with a thermometer. So for part 2 of our Grate on the Grill demo, we're gonna make some stuffed zucchini boats with some garden fresh cherry tomatoes and some lightly shaved and chopped garlic. We're also gonna use some sunflower seeds or pine nuts, your preference. Sunflower seeds are a little more budget friendly. Some Parmesan cheese, shredded, shaved, or grated will all work. I like the texture of shredded best. You're gonna need 1 egg and a lemon for this as well. So I already did a couple of these zucchinis, but I'll show you how to hollow out the inside of the zucchini boat. This also works really well if you have a spoon. I usually use a spoon. This is just, you know, a little out of the ordinary. So you're basically just gonna hollow out where these seed lines are. So you'll just either run your knife or your spoon along. First you'll cut off the end of your zucchini, of course. And then you'll just follow the natural bed of the zucchini. And some of it just pops out like that. And like I said, it's a little easier if you have a spoon, but a knife will also work. And if you don't have zucchini, you could also use yellow squash. You could probably even do this with a winter squash as well. They're much harder, so you would probably roast them first and then hollow them out and rebake them. similar to a twice baked potato. But today we're gonna use these fantastic summer zucchinis that we have. So as well as these 2 medium-sized zucchinis hollowed out, you're gonna need about a cup of stale, crusty bread. I just use natural white bread and let it set out for a little while so it gets a little bit of a texture to it. So we'll crack an egg in there. We'll mix in half of our garlic because we're gonna do a little gluten-free version of this as well. So you'll want to use about a teaspoon. It says 1 to 2 cloves. Don't let anyone tell you how much garlic to use. You make it with love. And then you're going to take a half a pint of cherry tomatoes. We're going to take a half a cup of this shredded cheese. And then we're going to take about a 1/4 cup of seeds. So that looks like about a 1/4 cup. And then we'll mix this all together. So the egg and the bread work as a binder to really make these tomatoes stick together. It'll hold all of this in the zucchini boats really nicely. And then you've got the sweetness of the tomatoes with the saltiness of the seeds and the cheese, and it'll make a really nice full palate meal. So you feel like that has a decently mixed texture to it. We'll add a little salt and pepper, maybe a 1.5 teaspoons to 2 teaspoons of salt. Personal preference there as well. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. We'll get it mixed up again. All right. And then we're just gonna take little handfuls of this and we're gonna pop it right in there in our zucchini. Just pack it in. And those tomatoes are gonna add some liquid to this mixture. So that's why you want those breadcrumbs and that egg in there. It's really gonna bind those together to make a much better texture. You can even do more tomatoes and less of the binders. It'll still work really nicely. It's just not gonna be quite as sticky and cohesive. But so much of cooking is personal preference. So if there's things that you want to change or mix up or add, that's all really great. And kind of experiment and see what works and what doesn't. And I'm going to change my gloves and we'll pack one more without bread so that we have a nice little gluten-free option. Like I said, it won't stick as nicely, but it'll still give you an alternative option if you are someone who is gluten-free. So we'll layer this in here. We'll mix in some of these tomatoes with this garlic. We'll start with the tomatoes. We'll put a little bit of these sunflower seeds on there to give it some texture. And then we'll top it with a little bit of cheese. Pack it in there again so that it all stays together nicely. And then we are ready to get on the grill. So we'll pop back over here to the grill and we'll check our chicken. So our chicken's getting some nice color on the bottom. We want that to be a little bit darker all around before we flip it over. And another great tip for cooking on the grill, when the meat releases from the grill, that's when it's ready to be flipped. So if it's sticking like this, it wants to stay on here a little bit longer. It's naturally gonna pop itself off and release when it's ready to be flipped. See, like those, the tenders, totally ready to flip. They just kind of separated themselves. The wings too, they just separated pretty nicely right there. So we'll flip that one as well. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and we're gonna take these zucchini and we're gonna set them on this pan here. This has been preheating as well, so it's nice and hot. And we're on a little bit of an angle here, so things might slip and slide, and that's okay. Things happen. All right, so we're gonna close these in here. We're gonna leave the zucchini boats on for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we're gonna check them. You really want them to be golden brown, and you want the tomatoes to look like they're blistering just a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna check the rest of this chicken. So see that chicken, it's got a much nicer golden brown color on it. It lifted entirely off the grill by itself. No need to struggle or pull at all. It just separates itself. That one doesn't have quite the color, but it's separated just right, so we're gonna do it. See that breast? We're gonna put that a little off the direct heat because they're small. See if we can get this one. All right. And we'll flip that as well. Okay, we'll give those another 5 to 7 minutes and we'll check them again. These still need quite a bit of time. So now that we think this chicken is getting close to being done, we're gonna use a meat thermometer. Because the chicken thigh is the biggest piece of meat that we have, we're gonna use that to test our temperatures. So you're gonna find the thickest part of the chicken, which is generally in the thigh meat. Here we go. Between where the thigh and the bone meet. And you don't want to actually touch the bone, but you wanna get as far into that chicken as you can. So you see we're right at 169 degrees. So that's pretty darn good. We're gonna pull these chicken off right now. These are getting pretty toasty. If you see that Parmesan cheese is getting a nice little golden brown to it. This stuffing here is also turning brown, and we're getting just a little blister to start on these tomatoes. So those will need a couple more minutes. But we're gonna pull off this chicken in the meantime. We're gonna check this other thigh as well. Here, we'll turn it around here. It's gonna get right in the crick there. And you see this one is bigger, so it's taking a little bit longer. You want the internal temperature of chicken to be 160 degrees to be fully cooked. So we are right there, 160.2. That's perfect. We'll leave those on there for 5 more minutes. And always good grill protocol is to clean your grill right afterwards. That way, next time you cook, you don't open it up to a gross, overly dirty grill. We'll take this little knife, we'll cut in here, we'll see what this looks like. So that's perfect. There's no pink at all, but you can still see some really nice juices in there. That chicken is nice and cut through, or cooked through. Cooked all the way through. See that? Chicken breast just tears right apart. Super tender. And these little bad boys are almost snack size. So there you go. That is cutting and cooking a whole chicken on the grill. Okay. Oh yeah. Here we go. So blistering on the tomatoes is when the skin starts to shrivel like this and gets wrinkly, and that's kind of where you want to be. So this stuffing is nice and firm when you touch it now. It's not goopy and soft like it was. That means the egg is cooked all the way through. This vegan one or vegetarian, gluten-free option is probably just ready to come right off of there because there's no egg to be cooked in it. So we'll slide that bad boy off of there. And we'll pull these off as well. You can always leave them on to cook longer if you want everything to be a little more well done. Oh no, this one wants to fall apart. Oh, and it did. Here is your 1 hour great on the grill dinner. You've got a roasted chipotle chicken leg and thigh and a grilled stuffed zucchini with Parmesan and tomatoes. We'll give you a little balsamic drizzle. And you're ready to eat.